Hitting record. So everybody's here now. For those of you that just joined us, we were trying to figure out if we were hitting record or not. Apparently we did. So I think what we're going to do this time is we'll do a brief little talk about what we talked about this week, going into this is the pre-show, I guess, at this point, since we're going to do it. So we talked to Dr. Joseph Drolshagen, and I am not sure, I don't think I ever got his name so I could speak it right. But at any rate, talk a little bit about what he went into, because there's a couple of key things there that lead us into what we want to do this time. And you guys can all pretend that this didn't happen. We didn't have this pre-show right after we do the intro, is that we've talked a lot about AI, and we've talked about tools. We've talked about utilizing AI properly. We've talked about how to learn to use AI, how to figure it out, things like that. And this came from a conversation I had the other day with somebody where we were talking about things we're doing with AI. And he was going through a lot of stuff. He's doing a lot of cool stuff. But then I was saying what I was doing, and he's like, oh, I didn't think about that. This is about systems and not just about the tools. And I was like, well, heck yeah, that's my bread and butter at this point. And Michael and I have talked a little bit on and a little bit off air and stuff like that about AI and how do we do it and where are we going. And I figure this is a perfect time because Michael's about to, I think we've all talked about, we've had this on air too, is he's trying to shift into he's been in a heavy working in the business, and now he's going to go into working on the business. And I think it's a great time to step into like, okay, what does that look like? How can we step into this like full force? Like, how are we going to make AI a part of this? How are we going to help this stepping on into working on my business be more effective? You know, it's out there. People talk about, 20, 30, 80% improvements and things like that. And they are not all hyperbole. I think there are legitimate, huge increases you can get in speed. And I think we'll talk about the strategy. We'll probably get into some specifics as well. We'll dig a little deeper. But this is really, this is loosely based on what I do with customers. So this is also a little bit of a consulting 101, I guess, in a sense, is the initial interview. So we're going to talk about where he's at, because that's what we focus on. We talk all the time about the why. And then we're going to start walking through what are the challenges, what are the problems, what are the goals. And hopefully this helps all of us in a way of saying, like, this is a better way, or at least an example for how to do consulting, how to talk to your customers, how to gather requirements, how to propose solutions and things of that nature. But also within this is it's like a play within a play, in a sense, is we're going to talk about how do we use AI better? What should we be looking for? Because it's moving really fast. And if you're not already on the train, you got to get on the train. But you, at this point, I think need to be already looking at like, where are we going to go with this? Where can we actually leverage it, as opposed to playing with it and toys and things like that? And it's honestly, it's not even about the tools at this point. It's about the mental shift. And that was sort of the key to this interview that we had this week, that we had Tuesday and Thursday. And so, without any further ado, we will do the official start. So this, like, you guys get so much bonus. You get bonus in your bonus materials. You get like pre and post and all of those.
I think for the challenge, we need to just start jumping into the intro and then just go.
We did that, but it feels better to have this, like, and I would love for you guys to give us feedback, because it feels better to me that it's more the family thing, and it's a little more like, okay, now we are officially, like, we got the, start or cut or whatever is like, take 45 and get into it. So now we can like shift a little bit into the pregame and the preamble, the pre-show, to the actual show. If you don't know, this is the Developer Nerd Podcast. It's also known as Building Better Developers. I am Rob Broadhead, one of the founders of Developer Nerd, also the founder of RB Consulting, where we talk to companies that come to us and are saying, what am I going to do with AI? What am I going to do with technology? And we say, well, what do you want to do with the AI and with technology? What are the problems you want to solve? And that conversation is what we provide them, as we talk to them about what their problems are, how to solve them, and then walk them through a roadmap, it's steps and execution to actually have a plan, execute on it, and improve their business through technology, automation, AI, and all of those other things. Start with your why, move forward from there. Good thing and bad thing. This is like a quintessential me kind of good thing and bad thing. So good thing is today got to do a little bit of a walk and stuff like that, getting some exercise, getting some fresh air, getting the cobwebs clean. I've been very heads down lately, just cranking on and in the business. And I was like, okay, we'll just like make it a part of a little shopping thing. And we'll just go out and grab a little groceries and stuff. So it's like, a little bit of running errands as well as walking around. That's great. Great day, great everything. The bad thing, which is also sort of good, is there's a nice little pastry shop right next to the store that we were headed for. And they've got these donuts that you look at and you're like, I cannot resist. Sorry, got to get one. What's worse is that somebody that will not be named, she says, and that may be a hint, hey, I would love to get a donut. And of course, my first thing is like, no, I'm going to say that cleaner than I did. I'm like, no, we don't need to do that. As I'm walking into the donut store and like picking my donut off of the shelf. So sometimes you get what you ask for, and then later I'm going to have all those calories and I don't know, I'm going to be regretting it too much. Just like I don't regret passing this off to Michael right now.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Malash. I'm one of the co-founders of Building Better Developers, also known as Developer. I'm also the founder of a company called EnvisionQA, where we work with businesses struggling with technology and struggling with growing their business. We help by creating reliable, tailored software that helps you work smarter, scale faster, and stay in control of your business. Good thing, bad thing. Good thing, we're going to talk about it a little bit today with some of the things, but I have been really utilizing AI a lot to help move some of my projects forward. So much so that I've even was caught by the OpenAI change in billing processes this week, because all of a sudden I went from like an unlimited plan working away to, hey, you're out of tokens. Like, wait, where the hell did tokens come from with this plan? So that's the bad thing. The bad thing is I've been utilizing it so much now that I went to the paywall and had to up a tier just so I could continue using the tools that I'm getting comfortable with.
That is actually a good and a bad thing, and better yet, a good segue into where we're going to go today. So let's start with we're going to use this as a model kind of example, and we're going to use real world stuff because I think this helps more than the theory. Is instead of talking about theoretically, like what does it look like, or how would you do this, or what if you had this situation, is we're going to talk about some specific things. And so just as a little setup from my side, and then I'm going to let Michael give probably more in depth as I'm interviewing him. We're going to talk about EnvisionQA specifically. So this is Michael's company. It's been around a couple of years now. It was we'll call it a reboot. It was version 2.0 of a company, Malash Consulting, before that. And this is an interesting thing that I think you guys will run into as well, is that there are companies that and founders and even as a side hustle things you're doing where you change gears, where you're working on something and you realize that doesn't work, or you realize that it's maybe that market died. Like could be like your technology skills. Maybe there was something like you were a great C programmer and now nobody needs C anymore, things like that. And so it's a little bit of a retread. It's also a situation where you've got a new business, but it does have some established business vibes, we'll call it. Also, definitely there's a little bit of old business baggage, essentially, because when you change, there's still things that you had in the past, and you've got to work through those. Is that a good? And actually, I'm not going to ask that. As I'm going to go to you now. Give me. Let's start for me and everybody here, especially them, less than me. Give me a solid, little 1 to 2 minute kind of thing. Like, what is EnvisionQA? What does it do? And maybe a little bit is like, where do you want it to go? Let's go with that. It's like, who are you? Where are you today? Where do you want to go?
So who we are, today, we are a software company dedicated to helping businesses organize their tech stack. A lot of companies I've talked to, a lot of businesses, they really barely know how to use a computer, or they just go buy off-the-counter software that they think will help their business grow, but it ends up they build all this paper processes or processes around their software just so that they can make their business run. So they're struggling to really work their business or at least keep the business running with technology. So they're fighting technology. I'm doing this over the years. Malach Consulting, I did the internet thing. Like I did just about any type of tech job that was out there. I ran network cables, I built websites, I did tech support. I did everything because I could do everything. And back then, that's kind of how it was. I wasn't sure what I wanted to be when I grew up. But over the years, 25 plus years of just building systems and software, I figured out that, I'm better off helping people by helping them define their solution, help them figuring out what they need and remove the bottlenecks. So that's where the software is. So I pivoted. We've talked through the show a couple different times. I went through a program called Co-Starters, which after running my business for 20 some years, COVID, a lot of people retired, the industry changed. And it was like, okay, it's time I change. And so I did. I went through this program. I met a lot of wonderful people. And I really figured out that what the direction I want to go in, there is a huge need with small business owners, middle-sized business in general. People have trouble struggling with finding the right tech stack or finding the right software solution to help them run their business. And I'm trying to work to grow, to kind of expand out, find those customers and build the business that way. I've just been struggling with that because as we've talked this week in the interview, I kind of took on a project to kickstart my company that was too big, too kind of outside the model. And it's just kind of unfortunately dragged on enough that I've been stuck in the mindset of trying to finish that before moving on to grow my business. And as we talked in the interview this week, I really need to be working on scaling them both at the same time. Get the project done, but still scale my business.
So that is an excellent overview. So now let's sort of taking that sets the table very well. Let's talk about what is your next step. So now you're doing two things here. Is you're dealing with working in the business. There's friction there. And you're dealing with on the business, and there's friction there. We haven't talked as much about that, but the friction there maybe is just you haven't started as much. But it's where do you want to go? And in both of these, and so in moving forward, what are your goals? Like give yourself, even 3 to 5 business goals, and then what are the friction points? Like what are the things that you're seeing that are slowing those down, or maybe even blocking you from doing those?
So the first one, of course, marketing. I'm not sure how to market the business online to find these customers because these customers are already in some cases tech inclined. They don't know how to use the internet, but they barely know how to use the computer. They're more interested in running their business. So finding these customers is one of the challenges. The second challenge is sales, being able to sell to the price competitively, but also price right, because some of these businesses are small. They don't have a very large budget, but there could be some easy, quick wins to get them to where they need to be that still a benefit to me, like still raises revenue, still works for my model, but still helps them grow. And then 3, I want to be able to scale the company to where I am focusing more on the business experience for my customers instead of working in the business all the time. I want to be able to grow the business. I want to be able to go find the right talent to continue to expand my company to the point that it is a company and I can quit. Not necessarily treating this as a side hustle, because this stopped being a side hustle 2 years ago. It's just more of I need to get away from working 80, 100-hour weeks, trying to keep a revenue stream coming in by working full time while working full time in my business.
So there's a couple of great things there. Before we dive a little more into those, what part or parts of the business feel like they should be working but aren't?
One of the biggest problems, especially with this particular project, was when I initially started the business, thought I really had my why down, really what I wanted to do. The problem was I thought this first customer was enough in the why that it would be able to knock it out of the park, no problem, work through it. But then I very quickly ran into the issue of biting off more than I could chew. Basically, taking on something without enough guardrails in place to ensure that the project went smoothly. It was basically going too far, too fast, where I should have taken it in smaller chunks. But lessons learned, I am almost at the end of this, and it did not fail or has not failed yet. That I think overcoming this challenge is going to make my business better and help me be better for the next customer. What was the second part of that question? Sorry, because I ran a little long on the first part.
It was really, so the first part was, now I got to remember exactly how I asked that because I was taking a lot of notes, but it was, what do you think is should be working but isn't, basically? So it sounds like that you feel like that project should have worked but it isn't. But are there any other areas of your business that it feels like they should be working but they aren't? That there's struggles, or maybe think about where you're spending time that you didn't expect to, where it's taking more time, it's taking more effort, or it's something that you're. Another thing I think, because we've touched on this, is it's too many touches to it. It's too manual a process.
Yeah. Right now, one of the biggest things, and we've talked about this before, project management tools. Jira is great, but it also has become very bloated over the years. Just kind of making sure that I do follow my own policies and procedures and best practices to ensure the best quality of my software. I found myself detracting from that when the project started going off the rails. Instead of doing bi-weekly sprints, Agile basically became one big Kibana board. But the problem was I went sometimes a week or two before I actually committed code. So I had way too many changes going in one shot, and it broke down. Interestingly enough, now that a lot of the IDE tools now have integrated some form of AI plugin, I'm now using AI a lot faster, especially with like code. You can actually, with Git, you can click the little code commit button. It will scan what you have in your code, and it will give you a little commit message right there as to what all you changed, and then you can quickly submit and push it up. So it has already helped streamline a lot of my processes, just plugging in little things like that. Another thing I struggle with is, for this project in particularly, is the rapidly changing requirements. We thought we had everything defined at the beginning. We talked to the business, we went through everything, but unfortunately we fell into a little bit more of a waterfall model where instead of going back and forth and getting feedback from them quickly, we went through more iterative stages over a month or two to do a demo, and then we got more feedback, which changed things. We found out, we have more requirements. So I've been using AI a lot more to help automate some of that process, help use it to do some of my research, and then go online and basically double check the customer's requirements. Because if I'm being told one thing, I need to make sure that what I'm being told, at least from a government's perspective, is right. And that is one of the things that this project struggled with, is the understanding, I think, of the customer's understanding of governance is different than how the software works. So that's one of the biggest struggles. So moving forward, I'm trying to figure out how to put guardrails in place, maybe even like a checklist going into the next project of, okay, what are the things that they need? What's their why? The things we've talked about all the time, but put it into more of a definitive, like, here is a checklist. Let's make sure we at least hit every box, and then go back to and do a second pass to make sure that we've fleshed out all the requirements.
So how are because you're a small organization, usually I'm thinking about like how are decisions made within the organization. But I think with this, it also is including not just this is a little bit getting into your head a little bit, but like how do you make decisions about the organization itself? What am I doing? What am I going to attack? What are the guardrails that I need to create? And with this, probably because of your case, is like where do decisions typically get made when you're interacting with customers, particularly on large projects? Is like what does that flow look like?
So, starting with guardrails. So, one of the things that this project has especially been a lesson learner is really especially when you're dealing with fixed bids or any type of compensation for a project, you need to make sure that you understand what the customer really needs and what they want, not all the extras. You have to figure out how to cut the fat and get it down to what is the bare minimum of what they need, and then get that flushed out, get that built, and then worry about all the extras later. That has been part of the reason this went off the rails. The other problem was, at least starting out with this particular project, was I had a vision in mind for where my company was going and what I needed to do. The problem was, due to the scale of this project, I had to bring on a team, a larger team, and the growth with that in the time frame we had was challenging. Because I had to bring in a lot of senior people. I had to bring in some industry specialists to help understand the software we were building to build it correctly. And there was a lot of friction trying to get it all together to like get things working smoothly and going forward. Part of that is because I had to subcontract pretty much the entire team. It was just me and the subcontracted team to build out the software, right? We couldn't do it all in one shot. So, I didn't have the time to go hire the people I needed to build the infrastructure I wanted for the company. I had to basically bring in a team and get that to work. And it was a team I hadn't worked with before entirely. And there were some challenges. Now, we got through most of those challenges, but we were budget constrained on really what we wanted to do. And because of the changes in requirements, things went off the rails. Like we just, unfortunately, there's still things that needed to be done at the end, and you just run out of budget. So you just kind of struggle through that. With that, though, I've looked at some other avenues going forward. There's some apprenticeship programs through the state that I can go through and actually look at hiring junior developers or even mid-level developers, depending upon their skill in college, and hire college kids to come in, start training them, and bring them in to help grow the business and help build things the right way, or at least in a more sustainable way.
So there's a couple of cool things in there that you mentioned that I want to touch back on. So the first one is the idea of defining the requirements and getting to that, the bare bones, what they need, and making sure that you're clear on the requirements. Because that would be a situation right there so how does that work? Let's assume you go in, you nail down all the requirements, and everybody signs off and says, let's go. What do you do next? Like when something comes in and there's a change, what does that look like? If you take it to the next level, it's like, okay, we set things up initially, but what happens when things start to break there, when it's they have a new requirement, or they have a requirement they didn't realize that was improperly defined, something along those lines.
So, lesson learned with this, and this might not necessarily have been the ideal customer. Again, as we've talked about, this was kind of outside my comfort zone, taking this one on. But ideally, anytime you get a new requirement or something that is not within the initial requirements of the project, you would do a new RFP. You would do essentially a new proposal for the change. You would define the requirements and then add it to the schedule. But you would also, because it's a change, you would have to determine, okay, is this a higher priority than something else that we're doing? Do we need to shift things around? Which changes your timelines and you adjust, and then things, are communicated. That's, software 101. Unfortunately, in the real world, as we all know, deadlines change, expectations change, and sometimes that gets thrown out the window. And we try not to let that happen, especially as business owners. But it's reality. It's software. Things break, things happen, and we have to pivot and adjust. It's just when you're trying to juggle a team, work in your business and on your business at the same time, it can be a little bit of a struggle to keep that balance.
So moving forward a little bit on this is you talked about AI and automation in coding, a little bit in code review of some sort, basically is working with AI assisted coding. Where else have you tried to introduce automation or AI within your organization?
Within the organization, I've worked with it to help me try to figure out. So right now, I don't have any social media going for the business because I'm so in the business. So I'm working with AI right now to try and work through a social media calendar, trying to figure out what makes sense, where to kind of hit what markets, where to go for certain things to get the word out about my company, try to compete, things of that nature. Trying to build that presence online. Because right now I just have a website. Yes, I have some social media channels, but I haven't posted anything to them other than, hey, I'm live. Which is a little different because one of the things about my business and how my business has almost always been is I'm more of a face-to-face business person. I like working with local businesses, local customers. I do work remotely. I do work with customers online, but I kind of like that personal interaction. I know a lot of tech people, it's like, oh, you should work remotely and all. I do to a point, but still, I like that ability to go shake my customer's hand, talk to my customer face to face sometimes. Um, I'm old school. But with AI, uh, so one was marketing. I'm working on that to help build my marketing presence. Two, I'm utilizing it to help me with code reviews. I'm using it to help kind of plan out requirements. I've actually found that working with AI to help flesh out requirements for some of the particular projects I want to do, not just the one I'm working on. I found that working on building chat, like your chat prompts, if you do it just right, I've gotten it pretty good to where I can actually have a chat or an AI prompt build me most of the requirements I need for tickets or for an RFP or just to have it go build the code. But I have a prompt that I can almost automate now for a little Q&A to build these prompts. So I'm kind of working through things to help me automate systems or build systems that I can use to quickly move to that next level, to kind of cut down on all the paperwork and all the preamble to get started on the next project.
So if your company scaled two or three times tomorrow, what would break?
Me. uh, because I am a customer of one. If I go up two or three customers, one, I would definitely have to quit my day job because there's no way I can, time then becomes the final factor. I could finally walk away. But um, the biggest bottleneck, depending upon how quickly it is, and there's all that what ifs, but the biggest problem is going to be getting the right people to help me. Because if I were to double take on two projects right now, that's fine. I can still manage that and I can still take the time to find the right people to bring in. If I go four projects tomorrow, I have to subcontract again. And that takes the risk again of not managing the requirements correctly. So at that point, I would almost need to hire like a project owner, um, or somehow automate the systems in such a way that AI or some process would kind of help me manage all the projects at one time.
So if you could fix one structural issue in your company, one issue in your company in the next 90 days, what would be your primary goal or primary thing to fix?
Primary thing to fix would be, oh, primary thing to fix is marketing. I need to get customers. I need to get that pipeline going. So within the first 90 days, I need to get that sales and marketing strategy going. I need to get that moving. I need to um, kind of get that a little more automated, a little less manual. Um, Granted, I have gotten most of like our social calendar for this. I manage most of our blogging and social calendars in about an hour on the weekends. I'm using that actually to build a social media tool like Buffer or something like that, to where I can put everything into one place, and then boom, it pushes it out to all the different places I need it to. Um, and I want to use something like that for EnvisionQA to help push my marketing presence, help push that sales, help push that marketing.
So then one last question, then I'll start talking for a little bit again. What do you think most founders or owners, managers get wrong when they're trying to scale with technology, automation, AI, or anything?
Kind of two things. One, the expectation of the software to do the job for them or to solve their problem is almost over bloated. I would say well over 50% of the time, the idea that the software is going to solve your problem, you just go buy it, plug it in, it works. That fails more often than it works. But the other thing to that, I know you said one, but it's kind of twofold. So the second thing is, let's build a solution for our problem. But the problem is they go build the solution for their problem and they don't understand their problem. They don't understand the why, and they build something that doesn't work.
Excellent answers. So let's talk a little bit about this. I'm going to give a little bit of this back with some in my own words, but then also we're going to tackle a couple of these things. The focus is going to be definitely we're going to look at the sales and marketing. So one of the things we've talked about is things change, things break. There is friction, whether it is with vendors, whether you're hiring somebody, whether it's with a customer and you're dealing with changing requirements or misunderstood requirements. So one of the things we have to realize is that whatever we're dealing with in automation, if it doesn't adapt, if it doesn't have flexibility, it's not going to work. It's going to break, because as soon as you have to move it, if it's a very rigid system, as soon as you budget, it's going to snap. Mm-hmm. And so we don't want that. Especially, we don't want that. And what we see here is, although they could be technical if Michael was an AI or whatever, is you see that there are things that don't scale. So things like, and some of them, those are important, like a customer handshake. That doesn't scale. You got to have so many people, it's so many customers. There are other things that should, that can and should scale if you're going to grow. And it's things like resources, people, hiring staff to do whatever your business is. In this case, whether it's development or implementation, those pieces should all be scalable. So you want to build your company for that. Now, that's a nice general thing, but let's talk specific about the marketing side. There are a couple areas that I think people get wrong all the time, unless that is their bread and butter. Marketing is one of these areas, is that what Michael gave, and we have all done that, and probably most of you agree 100%. Like, yeah, this is what I do, is I figure out my channels and I send stuff out. While that is okay for marketing and it is good for general marketing, that we have to talk about what is the goal, and I'll throw this one out as to follow that one up a little bit, is what is the goal of marketing? And keeping it short, I'm hoping we get a short answer on this one. So what is your goal of marketing?
So the goal of marketing is to expand my company's presence, so people know who I am, they know what I can do, and then to reach more people that have the problems that I can solve, so I can get more customers.
Okay, so I heard a couple some steps there, almost a process essentially. Is like we're going to get more people. We're going to have more people know who we are. And then we're going to be able to, within that, figure out who are the people that need our help. And then within that are going to be people that are going to become customers. We're going to be able to help them out. We're going to be able to generate revenue based on the help that we give, which is their standard pipeline, is that you throw out your nets and then you have some sort of an evaluation process. Are they a fit or not? There is an outreach or a contact kind of thing of like, now we're pitching them, we're selling to them. And then there's either there's fulfillment because they've bought, or there may be something in that too, where we're going to like follow back up, or we're going to circle back around. So in building a marketing system, and this is a perfect thing, and this is in 90 days for where you are, this is like a really good case study it's a really good like bite-sized thing for you to tackle. Now, I'm going to throw a couple extra things out because what we want to do is we don't want to just build the marketing and it works great and it's awesome and it can go 1,000 miles an hour and the rest of the business can't. We have to be, all the pieces have to talk. All of the pieces have to work together. There has to be integration among all of these. So the best thing, and this is, I think all of us know this, one of the most important things about any piece of a system when you're going to start putting it into other pieces is understanding inputs and outputs. What does the input look like and what does the output look like? Because then we can plug it into other areas of our business, like marketing, for example. We need to know, where are we getting data from? How is that coming? Because there should be data in that, because if you don't measure it, you're not going to be able to do any better. So you want to be able to measure it in order to manage it and improve it. So what you need to do, and this is perfect for any of you that are doing side hustles and are saying, I hate marketing, it's too much time, AI should be able to help me. These are the things you need to think of first. What does the actual process in detail look like? And it's not the high level that I just laid out. It is things like, let's start with what are the channels I'm going to work with? What does that look like? Zoom likes to give me a hands up when I have my hand too much. I can't talk with my hands as much. Apologies. So what are the channels, or what is the channel going to look like? And it's going to vary based on what it is. So if it's a Facebook or an Insta, then you're really probably more likely, it's about pushing short content, maybe. Depending, well, I guess Facebook could be longer. If it's something like a blog or YouTube channel or LinkedIn or something, there's probably some level of articles, but then there's also, and even with some of these others, interaction with others, because you're building connections, you're building relationships. So it's not just push with a little bit of pull, it's push in a lot of different areas. What you need to do is you need to figure out how do I score that? How do I track that? And particularly if you're using multiple channels, is what does success look like in each of those channels? And success measured as me doing the things, or my system doing the things it needs to do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, like you talked about, like a buffer or something where it's filling my social calendar, but also it's serving the purpose. So how do I know that I'm putting all this content out? How do I measure that it is, for lack of a better term, working or not? It's just like we talk about, you have to define done, we have to define what working is. So we start with that. And this is, as you alluded to with, or actually, and even specified, you can do with software design. This can also help you out at this stage where you say, okay, this is what I think I'm doing. These are the channels. These are the kinds of people. This is my target audience. If you don't have some of these, AI will clarify and say, well, you need to know this. And you can't just say, AI, tell me how to build a marketing campaign, because it's going to miss that. You have to pick on it. You have to give it specific, just like everything else. You got to give it requirements. So the more you spend on those requirements, the better the solution is going to end up being, because now you're covering not only the happy path, but the bad paths, the psychopaths, all of that are being covered, because you've thought out and you've laid into your system, you've laid into the definition, this is what this looks like. And with this, you're going to be building, in this first phase, part of it is you're building it's your inputs, you're defining what your inputs are, because somewhere whether it's typing something in and saying, I got 15 likes on this, or whether it's putting stuff into a CRM, whether it is reading information from an API to see what was the reach. There's a lot of ways to do this. You have to define that. What does that look like? If you don't know, this is one of those that pick one is better than anything. Is like, if you're not sure exactly, pick a reasonable amount of data, of a data set, I guess we'll say, not necessarily amount of data, but some things that make sense as KPIs, as key performance indicators. These are the things that say to me, this is working to some extent. And there are going to be those can change as you go, because initially you may just want to be like, I want to have reach. I want 50,000 people to see an article. Cool. Now 50,000 people have seen that article. Then what? So it's like, okay, well, out of that, I want engagement. I want people liking it of some sort, or liking it or commenting it. And then if you do that, does a comment way more than the like, and things like that. So now you're building this mathematical construct, essentially, to score what you're doing. So now you have hard data and rules and validations and things like that are now, this is a proper data model, essentially, for what we're working with. So now with that, we now have our input. Our input is that data model. So whatever the channel is, I need to find a way to map my data into that data model, because then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that data model and I'm going to move that forward, because that's like our top, that's throwing our net. So the next thing is I need to be able to take that input, and now I'm building another engine scoring machine, something along those lines, that says, all right, how do I take that, and within that and within the information I've got, how do I take that and figure out who should I be talking to? Who are my ideal customers? There's some sort of a filtering process, essentially, that we're going through here. Is we're saying, here's everything, and it's our measurements, it's our contacts, it's all that stuff. Let's push that in now. So now we're filtering this back out, and we're filtering this down a little bit and saying, okay, now let's cut off of the universe and let's go more specific. What is our outreach to our target customers? What is our interaction with our target customers? What are, and some of this is going to be, we're going to do the same thing, define the structure essentially, and we're going to pass that on to the next step. And we've got a very clear what comes out of this. What comes out of it is going to be scores, and it's going to be contact information, essentially, of some sort. Because now I want to say, okay, these are the people I want to talk to. This is how I talk to them. And now this could be 3 steps in there. It could be 1. I'm simplifying this. But now that we've got that, what we need to do is have somewhere that we're going to connect out to probably, our CRM, whatever our CRM that looks like, that says, who should I be talking to? Tracking the interactions with them. Do they go cold? Are they warm? Do I get to enter other people in? Which is in itself always one of those things. It's like, okay, this was great, but what if somebody comes in outside of that? So you want to make sure you're dealing with those exceptions. Where does the system break? Now, we have a CRM that we're using, and we're feeding it with information based on our pipeline. And we use that CRM to feed information back into our pipeline, and wherever that pipeline is, or you figure it a different place, because now we're talking about the sales cycle itself, or the sales itself. So we have people that are interested. So now they have gone from a lead or a prospect to, potential, I guess they've gone from a lead to a prospect, depending on what your language is. So now as a prospect, we have the same thing. We've got some level of categorization of the prospects, because we need to know, who are we talking to? How do we talk to them? What are we selling them? Especially in your case, there's different levels of services and products that you're looking at. Is like, am I just trying to get them to understand, the most basic stuff to just get their business going? Or am I trying to get them to upgrade their systems? Am I trying to get them to replace an old system with a new system? Am I trying to get them to enhance and scale their business in a way that they haven't even come close to? So there's all of that stuff that should be factors now in this piece. So again, if this sounds exhausting, it sort of is, because you have to dig into each of these places. And this is where most founders get it wrong, is they just like blank check it, sign it, make it happen. It's not that easy. So now we're into the sales cycle. Same thing. We need to walk through this. We want to track who are we talking to? How do we talk to them? What's the pitch look like? What's the offer look like? What's the feedback that they give? The more of this information you give, that you track, the more you can do all the dials and knobs and the things to perfect your process. Now that you get through that, you either have a customer and you can continue on, because we're not going to continue this ad nauseum. You can continue on with them, or you don't. Now, one of the things you want to do is you want to take that and feed that all the way back into the beginning, so that you can update your pipeline so that it is actively making some adjustments along the way. So it's doing things to change your message, change your content, change who your outreach is, change your filtering mechanisms, change your sales, all of that. And now you've got a feedback loop, which is literally what people want. When they talk about, RAG systems, basically, that's more or less that's what they want. They want something that is a system that will build itself, that will enhance itself, that will do its own upgrades and version enhancements. Now, from an AI point of view, the interesting thing about this, and this is the kicker for you guys all of you guys and ladies that are in the audience, none of what I said requires AI. Not a single piece of it. Now, where you can make all of that work better and make it faster and get it done in the 90 days, because I would say what Michael's talking about, you could have this up in some sort of a system running in easily, I would say 30 to 45 days, and be looking at the system by 90 days where you're like, okay, we've got this thing running, we've been testing it, it is now starting to become a machine and a system, and not just solving a single problem for today, but now it's all the things you need, because it could scale. That part of it can scale, especially if your outputs that come out of that into your, the fulfillment side and things like that. If those things are going into systems, it can also scale. So if it goes into your CRM, once somebody becomes a customer, you have the right stuff, so that goes out into your, maybe some job posting creation and things like that. But where AI can help you, each one of these steps we've talked about a little bit. It can help you in the design phase. It can help you as a sounding board. It is AI is too nice. My AI knows all the time. It is too nice. And it has started to tell me when it's not as nice. And I will specifically tell it sometimes not to. That is where you're going to get the best information, is build, fine with it. But at some point, either back in the same thing that you gave or pick another engine, however you want to do it, is say, now pick it apart. Give me the devil's advocate version of it, or give me places where this is weak. Where does this break? What don't I know? What didn't I ask you? It's all negative questions at this point. It is you need to pick on it, and you need to have, if you're going to use AI, you need it to pick on it. This is what we used to have to do with our friends and families and coworkers, stuff like that, and say, hey, I've got a business idea. What do you think? We didn't have to tell them, if this is a steaming pile of crap, they're maybe going to be nice, but they're going to tell us it's a steaming pile of crap. AI, sometimes it's too nice. So do that each step of the way. And what you want to do is first get the process. And even if it's a step of the process, get that step of the process, define it real well. Now, especially if you've used AI to help build that, now you have some context, and this goes back to what Michael talked about a little bit earlier when he's building software. You've used the AI tools and its inputs and outputs to help design it. Now it's going to be better when it helps to build that. And that's what you can do here, is you can say, here's what we created. This is the process. This is the inputs. This is the outputs. You can do things as simple as say, how do I make this real? And then you can go from there. It's not just how do I make this real, but it's if the more you give it, the better. So it's things like, I want to turn this into a system. I want to turn this into a command line program. I want to turn this into an app that I can use. Those kinds of things are all key, because it can go do that. Now, you don't want to do it in one shot. It's basically going to be, give me a roadmap, give me a list of tasks, and it will give you that. And then just keep refining that, keep working on that, keep knocking those down. And then as you go, make sure, and this will be for Michael, make sure you test it every bit of the way. That, I have found, is maybe the biggest change that I've seen in some developers, and we need to see in developers, is that test-driven development is great, but with this, test every stage. Every time you get past something, take a look at it, have AI build tests, have it build some more, look at your test coverage, because you're going to need to be able to step back. If something breaks, you need to make sure that it is in this step and not the previous step. You're going to need to be a software development manager now if you're a developer. And yes, you're just managing AI, but it is still essentially the same thing. It is, this is what we're going to build. Let's make sure we built it right. Now, once we've verified it, we can move on to the next step. So that is really where we get into this. This is where AI becomes something a whole different level. You're not solving one problem. You're not solving it in a vacuum. You are looking at a process. You are evaluating the process. You are refining, defining, and refining the process. You are turning it into something that then is stable enough and static enough and well-defined enough that now we can start adding automation. So instead of the wheel that's spinning and it's a little wobbly, and then if you spin it too fast, it just blows up, just like some businesses. And that's why there's 80% of the projects will fail, or whatever they're saying now in the market, and billions of dollars will be lost. Start with solidifying that wheel before you start spinning it real fast. And if you've got it solid, then sky's the limit. So then the answer to what happens if you get 2 or 3 times your customers tomorrow, and this is obviously beyond just this first page we've talked about, but instead of you saying, I'm going to break, you're going to say, it's going to be fine. It's going to take it. Everything just moves faster. Now, that is far easier than it sounds. If you're somebody that's in a situation that you are in a different position where Michael is, if you've already got a company, if you've got you've got employees, you've got vendors, and you've got things like that are much more a part of your on your radar, then yes, you've got more to deal with, but the same approach is going to be required for any one of these. Is you've got to stabilize, you need clarity, you need stabilization. Just like I said, Tess, you need to make sure that you know what you have and that you are comfortable, that you can confirm whenever it's going to go off the rails. That's a whole different area when we start about notifications and messages and things like that, and auditing and all the other things that are part of it. We're just getting the tip of the iceberg here. That is how we take AI and we turn it into something that is not just like hey, I'm going to go fix this one little problem. It is how we take it and say, I don't need to fix that problem. I'm going to fix, for lack of a better term, I'm going to fix all my problems. And it's not about AI. It's about defining the problem first. That was a lot there, I know, but you took a couple times in. So I want to say, I want to hear your feedback and your thoughts on this.
Yeah. So through the interview process, we kind of touched on a lot of those pieces. You kind of summed it up really nicely there. The biggest thing I'll say, and I totally agree, that in this AI generation, we as developers need to be more of software managers. We need to treat AI like a developer. We need to make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing, that it's building what it's supposed to be doing. And the only way to do that in software is to test. Make sure you define the requirements correctly. Well, if you can't write a test, then your requirements aren't defined correctly. That's the whole point of test-driven development. Define the requirements, write a test to the requirements, then write the software. Because then you're writing software to requirements instead of writing software in a vacuum, which a lot of times is what AI does if you don't give it enough parameters. I like the idea of using AI to build the systems. Like I said, I've talked about, I am thinking about building something like Buffer. Some of the things that I'm working on my requirements on is, like you said, how do you know when you get likes? How do you know when you're getting eyeballs on it? I want to look at those APIs and see how I can pull in certain metrics, but I don't want to go too far because that's not my business, right? I want to make sure I'm focused on the right information, the right metrics, and I'm not spinning my wheels too much trying to build a solution that's already out there that could be just, oh, go spend $20 a month for this. You get this solution. So that's one thing we didn't really touch on, but just be careful building things with AI just for the sake of building things with AI. There are a lot of great solutions already out there, and you might just need to find something in the right price point to go buy to solve your problem. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to solve all your problems, but that's why I'm focusing on companies that, may have bought a Mac when they needed Windows, or hey, they got Linux and have no idea what to do with it, or they bought a office inventory system for a warehouse when they need to buy something for a car rental agency. Things of that nature. You just have to look at your why and then figure out the sales and figure out how to target your message, your vision to your customer.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about build versus buy. I will just briefly touch on that because I don't know that we've talked about this in the age of AI as much, but it is the best thing. AI is a search engine as well. It is, I mean, a lot of people use it as just that, but it is a great place for you to say, I need to solve this problem. This is how I need to solve it. What are the options that are out there? And a lot of times, especially if maybe it won't give you the most recent stuff because it usually has got a little bit of delay in the data that's sitting in these AI engines, but it can give you really good options. It can say, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, and you can start picking on those. You can basically build very quickly an RFP and have the AI go resolve it. Is go like figure stuff out for you. Say, this is where these places are. It can rank them for you. It can do all of that. And especially if you keep the buy and build options both in there. So you're like, well, I may buy it. What's out there? But if I'm going to build it, what would that look like? Or what is that going to take? Then you do. It is something Michael, has touched on. It's like sometimes it's easier to just go spend the $20 a month and go do it. If you build it yourself, even if you say it took me an hour, so it saves me $20 a month for a while, but then you've got to maintain it. There's other stuff you may need to do. You may have missed things. So it's not always that easy of just I will build it. If you know what you really want, then you may be able to do it. But even then, it may take you a while. It may take a while and a lot of iterations with AI doing that, cranking through the things it does. It will save you. It will allow you to get there, but that's assuming that you know what you're building and you know how to build stuff. If you're struggling on either of those, then the broken thing that you have, whether it's you or whether it's your building skills or your defining skills, amplified by AI. AI is just going to make that more so. So you've got to be cautious with these things. That's why I think dipping a toe in, finding something that is a bite-sized chunk will help you immensely. That being said, we've gone a little long. Apologize that for all you guys, but I think this was, I'm hoping this was very helpful for you. I think it was helpful for me. I'm hoping it was very helpful for Michael. And if you guys want something like this, we'd be welcome. I think we'd be willing to do this again. And whether you want to do it as building in public like this, happy to have you on and just send something to info@developaneur.com. Or if you want to do it in private, if you just want to have this kind of call, I'll carve out time in my schedule and we can sit down and we can talk through stuff. I'm happy to do so. I'll do my best to give you some questions beforehand. Michael was sort of on the hot seat, so he wasn't able to prepare. So we'll get it down to 30 minutes instead of 60 minutes, something like that. We'll cut it down. There'll be a little less waffling, as they say. Thank you so much for your time and for hanging out here. Oh, super quick challenge for the week. What is the thing that you would fix in the next 90 days if you could? What is the problem that is the one problem? Like if you could just 90 days from now, snap your fingers and when you get there, it's fixed. What would that problem be? And then start a conversation with AI and say, I want to fix this problem. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's because your hair's out of place. I don't care if you don't know how to tie shoes. I don't care if it's you're building a CRM or you're trying to, scale K2 or whatever it is. Work with that and then see how that goes. I would love to hear from you I would love to hear more than anything. How did you define that problem? Because that to me that's where all the gold is to be mined, is for us to figure out how to better define our problems. Thank you so much for hanging out. Go out there and have yourself a great day, great week, great weekend, and we will be back next week and just let us know how that challenge goes. Thank you so much.